Captain Orion Vale stood at the observation deck of the Eidolon, his eyes fixed on the endless black ocean of space. Stars shimmered like diamonds scattered across a cosmic sea, but he felt no peace looking at them. There was a strange heaviness in his chest, a feeling of something missing. Every night he dreamed of a woman's voice. He could never remember her face, but her tone always stayed with him, soft, calm, and filled with a sorrow that cut deep. She would whisper his name, not Captain Vale, not Orion, but something older, warmer, like a word from another life. He didn't understand it. He didn't tell anyone. The Eidolon was a long-range exploration ship, humanity's spearhead beyond the Perseus frontier, a region of uncharted systems where time signals often failed, and physics itself behaved strangely. Orion's crew trusted him. He was known for his composure and instincts, but even his first officer, Lieutenant Reese, noticed how often he drifted into silence lately. "Captain, long-range sensors picked up something," Reese said, stepping closer. "It's big, artificial, possibly pre-human." Orion turned from the window. "Coordinates. Sector 19 Beta orbiting a dying red star." He studied the display. The object looked ancient, fragments forming a massive circular structure. It wasn't any alien design in their records. "Bring us in slowly," he ordered, "and prepare a drone team." Hours later, the Eidolon drifted close to the massive structure. The dying star burned faintly behind it, casting long shadows across its surface. The crew watched in awe as the ship's lights revealed broken towers, melted metal, and enormous rings spinning without purpose. "This thing could be millions of years old," said Dr. Lena Tao, "the ship's archaeotech, but I'm reading human data fragments." "Human?" Reese frowned. "That's impossible. We've never been this far." "Yet the signals match old Earth frequencies," Lena replied, her voice trembling. "Captain, there's something else. A faint energy core still active inside." Orion felt his pulse quicken. That strange feeling from his dreams returned. Stronger now, like the air itself was humming his name. "Prepare a boarding team," he said. They entered through a shattered hangar, their helmets lighting the darkness. The corridors were silent, dust floating in zero gravity. Strange patterns covered the walls, not alien symbols but human writing, worn and faded. Lena brushed dust from a nearby panel. "It says Project Eidolon." "Captain, that's our ship's name." Orion froze. The letters looked hand-carved, as if someone had scratched them there centuries ago. "How could that be possible?" Reese whispered. Before anyone could answer, Lena's scanner beeped rapidly. "There's a power signature ahead, down that corridor." They followed the signal into a large circular chamber. In the center floated a cracked sphere, metallic and translucent, glowing faintly blue. Dozens of cables connected it to silent terminals. "This must be the energy core," Lena said. "No, not energy. It's a temporal core. It's manipulating time fields." Orion stepped closer, drawn to the sphere. His reflection shimmered in its surface, and for a brief second he saw another man staring back, wearing armor of a different era. Then the image vanished. Suddenly the sphere pulsed and a weak hologram flickered to life. It was a woman. Her image was fragmented, glitching every few seconds. She wore a white uniform, her hair tied back, eyes soft but full of sorrow. She looked straight at him. "If you remember me," she said, her voice faint but clear, "it means I failed again." The hologram stuttered, then continued. "I'm Dr. Lyra Cade, lead scientist of Project Eidolon. This structure is the last temporal anchor for humanity's memory. If you're hearing this, Captain Vale, the loop is still running." Orion's breath caught. "She knows my name." "Maybe it's a coincidence," Reese suggested, but his tone lacked confidence. Lyra's hologram flickered again. "You may not remember me. You never do. But I will try one more time, to make you remember." Then the image froze completely. Back aboard the Eidolon, the atmosphere was tense. The recordings from the core had been partially corrupted, but the ship's AI, Argus, was analyzing what remained. "Argus," Orion said, standing in the command chamber. "What was that device?" "Temporal Echo Core," replied the AI. "A form of consciousness preservation technology. It appears designed to loop time while retaining emotional continuity across iterations." "English, please." "It stores memories tied to emotional energy, particularly love." The word echoed in the silent room. "Captain," Argus continued, The data indicates that this Lyra Cade has been reactivated multiple times. Each cycle corresponds with your genetic pattern, your existence. Orion frowned. My what? Your genome, Captain. Each time she is reconstructed, she seeks a consciousness matching your pattern. It appears she is searching for you. Lena gasped softly. You think she's been alive through these loops, remembering him lifetime after lifetime? Orion didn't answer. He could still hear Lyra's voice in his head. You never do. But I will try one more time, to make you remember. He sat alone in his quarters that night staring at an old photograph on his desk. His family from Earth, long gone. He wondered how many lives he had lived before this one. The thought was absurd, yet somehow it felt true. He couldn't shake the sound of her voice. It was the same as the one from his dreams. The same tone that whispered his name when he closed his eyes. Who are you, Lyra? He thought. And why do I feel like I've loved you before? Argus's voice broke his silence. Captain, the reconstruction sequence of the core is at 78%. Would you like to continue? Yes, Orion said quietly. Continue. In the lab, the sphere floated within a containment field as streams of light formed shapes. A face, a body, a figure slowly becoming whole. The process was delicate. Even one surge could destroy the remaining data. Captain, we're reconstituting her consciousness into the holographic framework, Lena reported. But she's responding to you. Only your voice stabilizes her code. Then keep me linked. The sphere glowed brighter. Lyra's form flickered into focus. She looked dazed, eyes filled with confusion and recognition. Her voice was a whisper. Orion? He took a step forward, heart pounding. You know me? She smiled sadly. I always do, even when you don't. Lena's instruments beeped frantically. Captain, her memory index is merging with your neural field. She's connecting to your mind. Before anyone could react, flashes of images filled Orion's vision. A burning planet, an ocean under twin moons, a wedding beneath alien stars. He saw himself, different faces, different lives, always with her beside him. Then it stopped. Lyra looked around, breathing hard. How many years has it been? Over 4,000 since Earth's fall, Lena said softly. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. Then the loop failed again. Orion stepped closer, confused. What loop? What are you talking about? She looked at him, sorrow and hope mixing in her gaze. You won't understand yet. You never do at first. He opened his mouth to question her, but before he could, the lights dimmed. Argus's voice echoed through the chamber. Warning. Temporal core instability detected. Chrono energy rising. Recommend immediate shutdown. Lyra shook her head. No. If you shut it down now, I'll vanish again. Please, Orion, trust me this time. He hesitated, torn between duty and instinct. Reese's voice came over the intercom. Captain, containment is failing. We need to abort now. Orion looked at Lyra, her eyes begging, full of something ancient and familiar. He took a breath. No abort. Stabilize it, Lena gasped. Captain, I said stabilize it. The hum of the ship deepened. The lights pulsed brighter, time itself seeming to warp around them. Lyra reached out a trembling hand, her form flickering. Thank you, she whispered. You always save me, even when you don't remember why. And then the room exploded in light. When Orion opened his eyes, the chamber was silent. The sphere was gone. Only Lyra remained standing before him, whole, solid, and real. Her first words were soft and trembling. You came back. Captain Orion Vale stood frozen as the light faded. The lab was quiet, and the hum of the Eidolon returned to normal. Across from him stood Lyra Cade, no longer a flickering hologram but a living, breathing woman. Her dark hair shimmered under the soft glow of the chamber lights. Her eyes, deep and kind, studied his face as if she had waited 1,000 years to see it again. Orion finally spoke, his voice unsteady. Who are you, really? Lyra smiled sadly. Someone who remembers you. Even when you don't remember me. The next hours felt unreal. Lyra sat in the medical bay as the crew scanned her body. She was human, completely human, yet her cells carried strange time-energy signatures as if she had lived through countless centuries. Dr. Lena Tao stared at the readings. This shouldn't be possible. You're Human, but your molecular age is undefined. It's like you've been rebuilt again and again. Lyra gave a quiet laugh. That's not far from the truth. Orion sat beside her, curious but cautious. You said you've known me before. Explain. Lyra looked down at her hands. This is not the first time we've met. Every few thousand years, the universe resets itself. Time loops. Humanity rises, falls, and begins again. Every time I remember, every time you forget, he frowned. You're saying, I've lived other lives? Yes, she whispered. You were a soldier on the old Earth, then a pilot during the first expansion, then a poet who wrote about the stars. Each life I found you again. Sometimes you loved me, sometimes you didn't know me, but I always remembered. Orion shook his head slowly. That's impossible. She met his eyes. So is this. She lifted her hand, and a faint shimmer of light spread across her skin, the residue of the temporal field still inside her. Later that night, Orion stood alone in the observation deck again. The stars seemed different now, heavier with meaning. Lyra joined him quietly. You're still trying to make sense of it? He nodded. I've seen impossible things before, but this feels personal. You said the universe resets. Why? And what does it have to do with us? Lyra leaned on the railing beside him. Because humanity was never meant to vanish. Long ago, during the first collapse, I created the temporal echo core to preserve human emotion. Love, hope, courage. The things machines could never store. But the only way it worked was by linking it to two people whose bond was strong enough to restart time when everything ended. Orion turned to her. Two people? She nodded. You and me, we were the anchors. Every time humanity reached its end, the loop pulled us back to start again. You lived. You forgot. I remembered. That was the price. He stared at her in silence, the truth too large to hold. You're saying we've been trapped in this cycle because of us? Yes, Lyra said softly. Because we loved each other too much to let the world die. The next morning, the Eidolon's crew continued studying the derelict structure. Its systems were breaking down fast. Radiation storms from the dying star made it unstable. Captain, said Reese, pointing to the screen. The structure is collapsing. We should leave orbit, Lyra interrupted. If we leave now, we lose the core completely. That means humanity will never reset again, no more loops. Lena frowned. Isn't that good? Maybe it's time to end it. Lyra shook her head. If the loop ends before it stabilizes, time could collapse permanently. Humanity could be erased from every timeline. The room fell silent. Orion stepped forward. What do we need to do? Lyra looked at him, eyes full of quiet strength. I have to enter the core again, merge with it one last time, but I can't do it alone. It responds to both of us, to our link, Reese protested. Captain, it's too dangerous. The readings around that core are unstable. Orion's gaze was steady. Prepare the chamber. I'm going with her. When they entered the core room again, the walls of the ancient structure groaned. Energy arced through the air like lightning trapped in glass. The sphere, now reactivated, pulsed like a heartbeat. Lyra placed her hand against the shimmering surface. Every time I did this before, I brought you back without your memories. This time, maybe you'll remember everything. Orion stepped beside her. How? By sharing it, she reached for his hand. As their fingers touched, a wave of light surged around them. The core responded instantly, glowing brighter. Orion gasped as flashes filled his mind. Lives upon lives cascading like falling stars. He saw himself standing beside her on ancient Earth, under rain-soaked skies. He saw her tending to him on a dying moon. He saw her watching over him as he slept in cryo, whispering his name each time. He felt her hand in every memory, always reaching for him across lifetimes. The flood of emotions overwhelmed him, grief, love, loss, and endless waiting. His knees weakened, but Lyra held him steady. Do you see now? She whispered through the storm of light. You never really forgot. It was buried to protect the loop. He struggled to speak. Why did you keep doing this? Because I couldn't let humanity fade. Because I couldn't let you fade. The core's hum grew louder, shaking the entire structure. Argus's voice echoed faintly through their comms. Temporal activity spiking. Recommend immediate evacuation. Orion ignored it. If the loop ends, what happens to us? Lyra smiled faintly. Then we finally rest, together. The core's light reached its peak. Time itself felt stretched thin. Suddenly, Orion saw something else, a glimpse of the future. A planet reborn, cities filled with light, children looking at the stars without fear, humanity thriving again. He understood now. The loop wasn't a curse. It was a promise, one they made to each other long ago. When the light faded, Orion and Lyra were floating in a void, a place between moments. The stars were gone, replaced by endless silver mist. Where are we? He asked quietly. The between, Lyra said. The space outside of time. The core is deciding whether to restart or end the loop. He looked around, calm despite the silence. How many times have we done this? Lyra smiled softly. I lost count after the 100th life. Orion took a deep breath. Then let's make this the last one. Her eyes widened slightly. You mean, end it? Yes, humanity doesn't need another loop. They deserve a real future. One that moves forward, not backward. Tears shimmered in her eyes. If we do that, we'll disappear with it. I know. He reached out and brushed a tear from her cheek. But if our love has kept the universe alive this long, maybe it's time to give it back. She held his hand tightly, smiling through her tears. You finally remembered. Every moment, he whispered. Every lifetime. The core's light began to glow again, brighter and brighter until it became almost blinding. Their forms began to fade, dissolving into threads of light. Lyra's voice was soft and full of peace. Then let it end, and together. Back on the Eidolon, alarms blared. The entire structure was collapsing into the dying star. Reese shouted orders as the ship pulled away. Captain! Lyra, respond! Only static answered. Then the star flared one last time, and went silent. Argus's voice echoed through the bridge. Temporal field collapsed. Loop termination detected. Reese lowered his head. They're gone. But then the scanners lit up. The dying star was gone, replaced by a newborn one, bright and stable. A miracle. Lena stared in awe. The system, it's reborn. Far away in that new system, 2 points of light drifted together before merging into one, a spark of energy that would someday fall to a green world below. A new dawn for humanity had begun, and somewhere in the heart of that light, 2 voices whispered across eternity, I'll find you again, in every lifetime. The stars began to disappear one by one. Not fade, vanish. Across the galaxy, entire constellations winked out like candles in a storm. The darkness was moving faster now, swallowing everything in its path. Every world that once shone with human light was now silent. On board the Aurora's Edge, alarms flashed red across every deck. Captain, the void wave has entered our sector, shouted Lieutenant Kara. Estimated impact in 7 minutes. Captain Rian Vale stood at the command center, calm but focused. His metal arm hummed with faint energy, the glow from Dawn's ring still pulsing along his skin. How big? He asked quietly. Aurora's voice came through, smooth but tense. Bigger than anything we've seen. It's no longer a single creature, and it's an entire swarm. Billions of fragments moving as one. Rian looked at Dawn. She stood beside him, her light flickering faintly. She was growing weaker. He could see it in her eyes. It feeds on me, she whispered. Every time I use my power, it finds me. It remembers my light. He placed a hand on her shoulder, and strong, steady. Then we'll give it something it can't consume. She looked at him curiously. And what would that be? Hope, he said simply. It's the one thing humanity never loses. The crew moved quickly. Every hand, every mind, every beating heart worked as one. They rerouted the ship's engines, charged the reactors, and prepared the experimental core, a hybrid power source born from Dawn's light and Ryan's dark matter circuits. As the energy built, the Aurora's hull began to shimmer between light and shadow, half glowing gold, half wrapped in night. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. Aurora's AI voice filled the bridge. Captain, the power levels are unstable. If the core ruptures, the explosion will tear the system apart. Ryan smirked faintly. Then we make sure it tears the right thing apart. Kara turned to him, her voice shaking slightly. Sir, if we fail, we won't, Ryan interrupted. His voice was calm, filled with certainty that pulled everyone back to focus. We've come too far to let fear do the fighting for us. He turned to Dawn. Are you ready? She smiled softly, tired but radiant. Always. The first wave of darkness hit. It looked like a storm made of night, a wall of pure void stretching across the sky. Ships vanished as it touched them, their lights swallowed instantly. But when it reached the Aurora's edge, the ship didn't vanish. It burned. The shields flared, half white, half black, colliding with the void. Energy screamed through the hull, shaking every deck. Ryan gripped the command chair. "Hold the line," Kara shouted over the alarms. "Shields at 60%. Divert auxiliary power to the core," Ryan commanded. Aurora's calm voice broke through. "Captain, the field is holding. The darkness cannot breach us." Outside, the ship stood like a star against the void, a single bright spark defying an ocean of nothingness. But the darkness adapted. It began to twist and form, taking shape, growing faces, voices, memories. The black waves around them whispered in 1,000 tones, voices of people they had lost. "Ryan, help us. Come back." The crew froze as familiar voices echoed in their ears. Kara's eyes filled with tears. "That's my brother's voice. He died on Titan Prime." Dawn's light dimmed. "It's trying to break you. It knows your pain." Ryan closed his eyes for one long breath. The voice he heard wasn't anyone else's, it was his own. The part of him that blamed himself for every loss. "You failed them," the darkness whispered. "You live in shadow because that's all you've ever brought." Ryan opened his eyes slowly, calm, steady. "Maybe I did fail them, but I'm still here, and as long as I'm here, humanity still fights." He looked to Dawn. "Let's show it what happens when darkness learns to love the light." Dawn stepped beside him. Together they placed their hands on the ship's core, one made of glowing crystal, the other of black alloy. Light met shadow. A surge of energy erupted, flowing through the entire vessel. The walls vibrated. The stars outside flared to life one by one as if cheering them on. Aurora's voice was faint but proud. "Captain, the core is overloading. You have 30 seconds before detonation." Ryan nodded. "Good, that's all we need." He turned to Dawn. "When this is done, you'll have to go." Her eyes widened. "Go where?" "Every blast of this core will burn both light and dark matter. If you stay, it'll destroy you too." She shook her head. "Then I stay. I was made to bring light, not run from it." Ryan smiled softly, the first real smile in years. "You're stubborn. You taught me that," she whispered. The darkness closed in. The void screamed as if the universe itself were alive and angry. The Aurora's edge rose toward the heart of the storm, engines burning with gold and black fire. The crew held their stations, no fear left in their eyes, only purpose. Ryan and Dawn stood together at the core, hands still joined. The energy reached critical. Aurora's last words echoed across the intercom. "For what it's worth, Captain, it has been an honor." "Likewise," Ryan said quietly. Then he looked at Dawn. "Ready?" She smiled, eyes glowing brighter than a sun. "Always." And they activated the core. The explosion was silent. No sound, only light. It expanded outward in a perfect sphere, white and black swirling together, not destroying, but cleansing. Wherever it passed, the darkness burned away, leaving behind new stars. Newborn suns scattered across the empty void. Entire sectors reignited. Worlds that had been silent for centuries glowed again. The galaxy woke up. And in the center of it all, where Aurora's edge had been, there was only light. Days later, across the galaxy, new signals appeared. Not human. Not alien. Something new. A voice echoed through the cosmos, carried on radio waves, light particles, and dreams. "Do not fear the dark. It is half of what makes the sky whole." People listened. They looked up at the stars and wept. The union of worlds confirmed that a massive energy surge had reignited nearly 40% of the dead systems. They called it the rebirth wave. No wreckage of the Aurora's edge was ever found. But in the heart of the reborn nebula, telescopes caught a strange image. Two lights, one gold and one silver, orbiting each other like twin stars. Scientists called it coincidence. The people called it faith epilogue years past. Humanity rebuilt. The new colonies grew strong again, spreading across the stars with courage and wisdom learned from the past. They built a memorial on Titan Prime, a monument of glass and steel that shimmered with both light and shadow. On its base were words engraved in simple letters, He was darkness and she was dawn. Together, they made the sky whole. Every year, ships would fly by, their engines flashing once. A salute to the captain who taught them that light and darkness weren't enemies, but partners in creation. And sometimes, on the quiet nights, pilots swore they saw two figures in the starlight, a man in shadow and a woman of golden glow, watching over the edge of the galaxy. Wherever humanity went, they followed, silent guardians of balance forever holding the sky together. Centuries had passed since the collapse of the old star system. Humanity had rebuilt slowly but steadily. Cities rose among green hills, powered by clean energy and guided by knowledge recovered from lost archives. The scars of the past were gone, but the memory of what had been survived in whispers and legends. On this new world, a man walked through the city markets, his steps careful yet purposeful. His dark hair was streaked with silver, and his face bore the calm lines of someone who had lived fully. He had no memory of the starship Eidolon, no recollection of Lyra, no awareness of the countless loops that had preceded this life. He was simply Orion Vale, a scholar working to understand the patterns of the stars. Yet he felt something strange whenever he looked at the sky. Tiny flickers like echoes of light danced in his mind, and sometimes in the quiet moments between work and sleep, he dreamed of a woman whose smile felt impossibly familiar. Meanwhile, in a research institute on the outskirts of the city, a woman carefully adjusted instruments measuring faint temporal anomalies. Her name was Lyra Cade, a physicist fascinated by patterns of time and space. Her dark hair framed a face that carried both wisdom and warmth. She had no memory of Orion either, but sometimes when she paused to watch the stars, she felt a tug, a presence she could not explain. A pull toward someone she had never met, yet somehow knew intimately. It was a warm afternoon when their paths crossed for the first time in this life. Orion had been studying an ancient archive of recovered star maps when Lyra entered the room, carrying a stack of charts. "Excuse me," she said, her voice soft but confident. "Do you know where the temporal anomaly readings are? I've been told they might overlap with the old Perseus scans." Orion looked up, startled. The way her eyes met his made something deep inside stir. It was like a puzzle suddenly shifting into place. "I might," he replied slowly. "I've been working on similar patterns myself. Maybe we can compare notes?" She smiled, just the slightest curve of her lips, and sat across from him. As they spoke, Orion felt the strange pull again, stronger this time. Every instinct, every sensation whispered that he had known her before. Lyra felt it too, though she didn't understand it. Each word, each gesture seemed to resonate with an unspoken familiarity. They laughed at the same jokes, noticed the same patterns, and reached for the same charts without thinking. It was effortless. Days turned into weeks. Orion and Lyra spent long hours together, studying the stars and mapping the faint anomalies left by the old temporal loops. Each time they shared ideas, their connection deepened, though neither could explain why their hearts beat faster in each other's presence. One evening, they climbed a hill outside the city to observe the stars. Orion held a small telescope, adjusting the lens to focus on a bright star near the horizon. "This one," he said softly. "It feels different." Lyra joined him, looking through the telescope. "It does. Almost like it's alive." They stood side by side, shoulders touching lightly. For a moment, the world seemed to fall away. The city, the air, even time itself. "I feel like I've seen this star before," Orion said quietly. Lyra's gaze met his. "Me too." They laughed nervously, brushing it off. But neither moved away. As the days passed, subtle memories began to surface. Not full recollections, but fragments. A comforting hand, a soft whisper, a presence that always came back. It was faint, like the echo of a song remembered from childhood. One night, Orion dreamt of a massive starship floating near a dying sun. A woman stood before him, glowing with light. She said his name. His eyes snapped open, heart pounding. He remembered the feeling of being called back across centuries. Lyra had a similar dream. She saw a man, a captain, reaching for her as the world dissolved around them. She woke trembling, as if the memory was trying to find her again. The moment finally came when fate could not wait any longer. They were in the city observatory, studying the faint traces of temporal energy that remained in this system. The instruments began to beep wildly, detecting a spike unlike anything either had ever seen. Orion stared at the readings. This looks like the old anomaly. Lyra's eyes widened. Yes, it's strong, and it feels familiar. Without speaking, they realized they were looking at the same thing. Something, a remnant of the loops, a thread of energy connecting them that was trying to reach them. Orion stepped closer to Lyra instinctively. She did the same. And as their hands brushed, a spark ran between them. Not electricity, but something deeper. Something eternal. Suddenly both felt memories flood back, not fully, but enough to know. The love, the loops, the countless times she had waited for him and the countless times he had forgotten. Orion's voice trembled. Lyra, I remember. Some of it, I don't know how, but I feel it. Lyra's eyes filled with tears, though she smiled. I know, I've been waiting. The city outside faded in their minds. For a moment, they were back in the between, the space outside time, where the last loop had ended. They could see the starship, the collapsing sun, the core that had held humanity's future. I thought we were gone, Orion whispered. Lyra took his hand. We were, but some part of us always survived. Some part of us always finds a way. The memories weren't perfect. They didn't remember every life. But they remembered enough, the love, the connection, the hope that had kept humanity alive. And now, in this life, they were free to live fully, without the loops, without the resets. Weeks passed. Orion and Lyra worked side by side, now fully aware of the role they had played in humanity's survival. They didn't speak of the loops often, choosing instead to live in the present. Humanity was thriving, and they were part of it, no longer anchors but witnesses to a new age. One evening they stood on the observatory balcony, watching the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and violet, the twin moons rising gently above the horizon. Lyra leaned her head against Orion's shoulder. Do you think we'll ever meet again in another life? She asked softly. Orion smiled, brushing a hand through her hair. I don't know, but I think we've had enough lifetimes. This one is ours, she smiled back, eyes shining. Then let's make it last. The following months were filled with quiet happiness. They explored the world together, mapping new stars, teaching others about the old anomalies and sharing laughter and warmth with the people around them. They knew the universe was vast and mysterious, but for the first time they didn't feel small. They felt like they belonged. And sometimes when Orion looked up at the stars at night, he saw flashes of light, echoes of the loops, reminders of what had been. He would squeeze Lyra's hand and whisper, We did it. We made it. She would nod, resting her head against his shoulder. Yes, we finally made it. Years passed and their love grew stronger, richer, and deeper. The loops that had defined their past were gone, but their bond remained, a quiet, steady flame that no time could erase. They laughed, learned, and lived fully, knowing that each moment together was a gift beyond measure. And somewhere, far across the galaxy, faint threads of energy from the old temporal core drifted silently among the stars, the universe remembering the two who had kept hope alive. Orion and Lyra didn't need to know about the threads. They had each other. That was enough. As the sun set on their world, Orion turned to Lyra and asked softly, Have we met before? She smiled, eyes sparkling with warmth and certainty. In every lifetime, she said. He took her hand and held it gently. Then let's make this lifetime count. And together they watched the stars, feeling the eternity of all their pasts and the infinite promise of their future. Free, alive, and finally together.